Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and I went to see Top Gun Maverick last night. And I gotta say, it was fucking incredible. Everything about this movie perfectly respected what came before while building what was new. That was the through line that most impacted me watching this movie. Everything about it, I think, is what the sequel trilogy of Star Wars especially should have been. Respecting your legacy characters, giving them towards an ending, and building up new characters that may take the mantle someday. And no matter, I'm not going to spoil it, but no matter how the movie ended, I was okay by the end of it of not having Maverick in the third movie and just being about these new characters, because all the new characters were great too. Everybody was well written. Everyone had a through line. Even the people that you were supposed to dislike, you disliked, but you loved to hate them, kind of deal, kind of situation. And they all had individual arcs throughout the movie. Everyone was written so well, so concisely. And then, of course, you can't watch a Top Gun movie and review it without mentioning how authentic and how incredible all the aircraft maneuvers were. As someone who used to be in the Air Force, not working on planes specifically, but I've seen a lot of aircraft stuff and worked around them enough to know how certain things work, and it seemed very authentic, at least from my perspective. And it was pretty badass. It was plain porn. It was plain porn, and I could have watched it all day, just watching them fly around like they were without even the story with it. But the story coupled with that authentic moment and that authentic movement was fucking incredible, and I enjoyed every single second of it. And Tom Cruise brought his A game. He's still, Tom Cruise, not necessarily a unique character, but he perfectly portrayed Pete Maverick again after so many years and gave him an arc, gave him a story, gave him struggle, gave him flaws, and it was great. It was incredible. There are a few things that I would have wished had happened. The whole movie is about him being aging out of being a pilot and like what his life going to look like after he's done with the Navy. What could possibly his life look like, because that's been his whole life, is being a fighter pilot. He doesn't have anything else beyond that. And so it's like, hey, do you want this type of life afterwards? Do you want this type of life afterwards? It was really about how to say goodbye to the character. And there's one specific ending that he seemed to be leaning towards, but he never really interacted with the characters that were representative of that ending. So I just didn't feel like he wanted it. He wanted to be with the people involved in that life, but he never really interacted with them enough in their lives to show that he wanted to join them in their lifestyle or whatever. And I feel like that could have been a through line a little bit more, but I do understand that the movie was so long that it would have been difficult to include that. And it's more of a regret than an actual criticism. Like, it doesn't really take away from the movie. It's just something that I think would have benefited the movie. And yeah, very, very small piece of it though. And you really can't talk about this movie without mentioning the inclusion of Val Kilmer's Iceman. Now, when the trailers were coming out, I thought it would just be that image of him in his uniform, and that would be about it, and maybe some text messages like they did in the movie, but not really Val Kilmer himself, because unfortunately his health condition has soured over the last few decades, and it sucks, and I feel really bad for him. But he still delivered a great performance in the scene that he was in, and you really felt his relationship with Maverick despite everything, despite Val barely being able to talk, and it felt real and it felt important to him, and it was just a really cool moment, a really cool thing to watch. There was some laughs, there was continuing their arcs from the first movie. It was just a really sweet interaction between these two legacy characters who have gone through so much together and apart, and Val Kilmer, seeing him on the screen again was great, because yeah, he was an incredible actor back in the day. It's terrible what happened to him, because we could have gotten so many more great Val Kilmer movies, and it feels like humanity was robbed of seeing more of him, and that sucks. And I feel really bad for him and his family because of what he's had to gone through, but he still gave his A game. He still gave a great performance. He still has it after all these years, and it was just something that was really incredible to see. And he was a big part of the movie, and I think it would have suffered without his inclusion. He was a big part of it, and it was important that he was in it. Yeah, Tom Cruise was great. Miles Teller, he is an incredible actor. After watching Whiplash, he more than made up for the Fantastic Four movie and the Divergent movies. He really brought his A game in this. He really emulated Goose in a great way, since he was the son of Goose. But he also had a little bit of Maverick in him too, because I mean, Maverick helped raise him after Goose died, at least to a certain extent. So it would make sense how he was kind of a blend of the characters, and he really showed it. And you could understand he was very much a hesitant pilot for the majority of the film because, I mean, his dad died in a plane, so part of him wants to live up to his father, but at the same time, he doesn't want to end up like his father. So there was a very concise through line with this whole situation with his character arc, and Miles Teller delivered it perfectly, and I really, really enjoyed it. And all the other characters, Phoenix, she was incredible. I really liked her chemistry with a lot of the other characters, even Bob and Hangman. She had great chemistry with them. Bob was kind of an interesting character. I think we could have used more of him. He was kind of the awkward one who was kind of left out of the group that didn't really fit in until the more team building moments later in the movie when they were playing beach football, which was a great scene, very team building scene. As someone who was part of the military, stuff like that is important to build a team environment. But I feel like his awkwardness could have been shown more so that when that moment came, it was a little bit more cathartic. But, it really time constraint. That's the biggest drawback, and so it's not necessarily a flaw because, yeah, they only have so much time. Hangman, he was definitely supposed to be the Maverick of the movie. Goose's son was not the Maverick of the movie. And Hangman was everything the Navy feared Maverick was back in the original movie. Taking cockiness too far, abandoning his wingman too far. He was the extreme of what Maverick was. And so that was a perfect foil to Maverick getting ready to retire, seeing the worst reflection of himself in this young man, Hangman. And it was portrayed very well, and then Hangman's arc throughout the film into the finale really, reflected Maverick coming to terms with his own carefree nature and understanding how to control it. And I think it was very, very well telegraphed and really well played through. It was predictable, as much of the movie was, but that's fine. It's exactly what we needed right now. It feels like a time capsule from the 80s. Like 80s, nearly every movie was a banger, banger, banger. Every year there was a new classic that came out. There's very few classics from the last few years, and that's kind of sad, but this one definitely feels like a time capsule that would have fit in perfectly with the classics of the era. And Hangman was a big part of that, and I really, really enjoyed his part of it. All the other characters, they were great. Jennifer Connelly, she didn't have a whole lot of screen time to have much of a development, but I still did enjoy her character, and her chemistry with Tom Cruise was great. And whether or not it was intentional, it felt like there was a through line in the movie with the whole, Maverick, what's his life going to look like? He's the last true pilot, with him being replaced by drones eventually, with that whole situation. It kind of felt like they were trying to mirror the fact that Tom Cruise is one of the last real movie stars. Him and Will Smith, up until the Oscars, were the only ones whose names alone could really bring people to the box office, and that era is ending. Tom Cruise is one of the last ones that are a traditional movie star. Everyone else is character-based. Characters bring people to the seats. Doctor Strange brings people to the seats. Benedict Cumberbatch doesn't. Tom Cruise is one of the last ones. And so, of this waning movie star era, how do you deal with that? How do you move on from that? How do you choose a life that comes after the sunset of your career, when your career is everything you've ever been and everything you've ever known? And it's kind of a neat through line, a neat comparison, especially because it's Tom Cruise, It was telegraphed very well. And this isn't a sequel that I was asking for. It wasn't something that I felt like I needed. When it was first announced, I was like, oh my God, not another Hollywood sequel. They're obsessed with sequels. I'm sick of sequels. But this one seemed like it was a story that really needed to be told and really did it justice. This is everything a Hollywood sequel should be. It balances the old while creating the new. That is something that sequels these days struggle so hard with. The sequel trilogy of Star Wars especially, but this movie excelled at it in every single moment and every single frame of the film. It perfectly balanced the old with the new, the legacy with the future generation. And that is the best thing to say about it, and it's what makes it so unique these days. I feel like if it had been released among the classics of the 80s, it would be remembered fondly and would be considered a classic, but it wouldn't stand out quite to the same degree it does now, because a movie like this is so out of place. A movie that doesn't have agenda, that doesn't have anything like that. It's just trying to tell a good story with good characters, with some hell of a lot of good action and plane porn. And it delivered in everything that it was trying to, and just some amazing writing. I cannot praise the writing enough, because every single character felt real. Usually, even with the best movies, a few characters feel real and then a few others feel like NPCs. The majority of them feel like NPCs. There's really not a single person in this movie that I thought that's just an NPC, that's bad acting, that's bad writing. Every single person stepped up, and every single person delivered a compelling performance with compelling writing. And I really can't praise it enough. This is one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. I didn't think there'd be two movies this year that I would say were good. Usually it's about one per year that I'm like, this one is incredible. And I've already had The Northman that I praised incessantly. But this one's pretty high up there. I'd have to give this movie an 8 out of 10, and I really don't give that high of a score very often, but this movie definitely deserved it, and it was definitely a movie that you need to see on the big screen, on the IMAX. I normally don't care about IMAX or big screens or anything like that. I really don't care, but this one, just with all the plane pouring in it, it definitely required a broader screen and a more interactive experience, because that's exactly the way it was intended to be made, and it just excels at being in that environment better. So, yeah, those are my thoughts about Top Gun Maverick. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.